Alrighty, good evening, everyone. My name is Gunnar Ellsworth, and welcome to the first ever show of Through His Eyes with Gunnar Ellsworth. Should be a great show we got for you today. I'm going to discuss some current events, try to focus on our Savior, and just keep it pretty interesting, keep it moving kind of quick. Just some info about what we're going to be doing here. Planning to have shows on Mondays and Thursdays around 7:30 p.m. MST. So for my folks on the West Coast, that would be 6:30. East Coast would be 9:30, and so on and so forth for you. They're all going to be live. So if anyone ever wanted to hop in and comment or ask a question or anything like that, that would be something you could do. I'll answer all my questions at the end of the show. And so that'll be kind of how that goes. So you'll have to stick around. And then I'll be posting and editing and posting them all after the live stream. So those can be watched later. And then for now, when I have 0 subscribers, 0 followers, 0 viewers, if there are any comments, I'll make sure to incorporate those into the following show. So any comments that come in between now and Thursday, if there are any, I will put those in the next show, talk about those topics, answer those questions if I deem them worthy of my attention. Great. So kind of just getting into why I decided to do this, because this can be kind of a big decision here. I was watching an episode of Modern Family. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that show, but I was watching it, and one of the characters, Jay, is like the old grandpa of the group, and his wife and his son were sick of him yapping all the time about things he believes and politics and things like that. And so his son set him up to have a podcast or like a little talk show like this, and so he could spit all his words at the podcast instead of annoying his family. And so part of that was I was doing that. I was like, man, I've got a lot to say sometimes, and I bet my wife gets annoyed. And so I decided to try to kind of project this into the world. And while I'm not intending to have a ton of people watch this, if I could help 1 or 2 people, that would be awesome. And especially, I want this to be kind of a journal for my children. Official who I really respect talked about journaling and how his kids cherish and value the journals that he left behind, that he wrote in his youth. I'm not so good at that. And so I wanted to leave a journal behind for my children. And this is the best way for me to do that, just by talking at a camera. And so, protects my wife, maybe good for my kids. And also, I find when I'm studying about Jesus and other religious topics that I have better studies if I'm like working towards something. And so it's been really awesome studying for this. And I hope that, as I go forward, that I can continue to study so I can have better and better shows, learn more and more, and just improve my faith, because that's really the goal. Just kind of in life is to increase our faith in Jesus, become closer to him, develop a better relationship with him. And that's how you find true happiness. And I really believe that. And I've noticed that the happiest times of my life are when I was the closest to my Savior. So, and also help me keep the commandments as I talk about like what's right and wrong. If I say something is right and then I'm not doing it, obviously that's pretty bad. And so it's going to help me with that as well. So that's kind of the point of the channel. I mean, we'll go into more of my personal beliefs and things like that later. I don't want to, bore you right off the bat. I want to talk about some things that are relevant. A couple disclaimers. I just don't want to get in trouble. I want to make sure, even though I have 0 viewers, if I ever do have a viewer, I don't want them to be offended. First thing is everything I say, all my opinions are my own opinions. I'm not, sponsored by anything. I don't reflect the official positions of any church or religious institution. I don't, reflect any political party or government entity. And so unless I explicitly say like I'm representing this person, which will probably never happen, I'm not. It's just my opinion. I've studied hundreds and hundreds of hours about Jesus Christ. So I would say that I know a lot about him. However, everything I say about him is speculative. He could come down and be like, dude, you got that so wrong. But this is just based on my hundreds of hours of study. This is my best guess based on what I know about him, his nature, his goals, his values. So I'm going to focus on that. And a lot of it will be speculative. So, don't get me in trouble. I'm just trying my best here. And I think talking about him in general is a good thing. Also, like I said, I'm not affiliated with anyone. No one's paying me. Believe me. And nothing on this channel should be like advice. I don't want you to like follow everything I say. I hope that maybe you can glean some things, do your own research, and maybe make some changes in your life, but don't just like listen to everything I say. I'm not a religion. And also, just heads up, everything I say should be respectful. Violence, hatred, or harassment is sinful. I can vehemently say that Jesus doesn't want you to be violent. So I'm going to try to keep my words from inspiring any violence. I'm not trying to like scare anyone watching the show, but just know that no matter what I say, you should never be violent. Great. So kind of getting into that after we kind of got all that stuff out of the way. Kind of wanted to talk a little bit about my values, who I see Jesus Christ as, just to get started here. And then we'll get into some other stuff, some fun stuff. We'll talk about Maduro, and he was obviously captured, and what would Christ think of that? Obviously, kind of the repercussions of that. What's going to happen going forward? Additionally, kind of the person behind that and who's taking a lot of the credit for that operation is Donald Trump, probably the most famous man in history besides Jesus. Not in a good way or a bad way. I'm just saying everybody knows about him, and many hate him, many love him. And so we'll just kind of talk about that. I kind of want to get into who he is and especially like what motivates him. Like, I don't know. We're very different. And I'm not going to I hope that no one can determine how I really feel. I just really want to talk objectively about, what he's doing. So first thing is I'm very disappointed with the world right now. And how often people are doing bad things or mean things in the name of Christ. And so I really want to focus on Christ's teachings, but not a lot of times people focus on just one verse and then they base their whole moral standing around one verse of scripture. And they take it, okay, everything in the Bible is true. So that is my thing. And I'll just get into more examples of that later. But I think one example is when Jesus flips the tables in the temple. If any of you who don't know the story, obviously there's some money changing going around in the temple, and Jesus gets there and he's rightfully angry. They're desecrating a sacred place. And so he goes in there with a whip and he flips tables and he basically tells everyone to get out. And so many people will take that and they'll be like, oh, I have a right to be mean. If anyone's doing anything bad, I could be mean and I can hurt them and I can be violent towards them. And I don't know how people get that. He did it one time in a very, very sacred place, and that was being desecrated. You don't get to just be mean if someone's mean to you, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of times we see Jesus in the scriptures being nice, and forgiving and loving. And people take that and say, well, he was, aggressive. Let's just maybe you can be aggressive one time out of every 200 times that you have to handle a situation. And then, the Old Testament, obviously the God Jehovah was wiping out populations. We know that has been fulfilled. Christ doesn't do that as much anymore. He's fulfilled that law. And so I'm going to try to steer away from the Old Testament in my research and my teaching. I just feel that because that law is fulfilled, it's great history. We can learn great lessons from it, but I'm not going to use that as my window into Christ's nature and personality as much. No hate to it, but just, I just don't think it's as current. And as I talk, I do hope that, as I go through commandments, as I talk about, what I think is right and wrong, that as you maybe are doing something that isn't so great, which I do all the time, I do the wrong thing often. I hope that as you feel that little pang of maybe guilt, not shame, but just a little pang of guilt, they call it godly sorrow, that instead of it making you feel bad or angry or I'm never watching him again, I hope instead it will inspire you to make that little change to be better. And I'm not trying to condemn you, but I just hope that if you ever feel that little pang of grief or guilt, I hope that you take that and make some changes instead of just, get angry and kind of withdrawing yourself. So just keep that in mind as we go throughout here. Great. So one thing that I wanted to go into is I feel like we have a bad case of, I call it lemmingism in the world today. So lemmings, if anyone doesn't know, they're a small, rodent type creature, and they all get in a line and they follow each other and they jump off this cliff and they all die. And it's really sad for the lemmings. But I feel like sometimes in America, we kind of lemming on to a political party. And I'm sure this has been said a million times, but I hope that what I try to do is have strong morals irrespective of a party. Meaning, just because someone said something, maybe someone who I mostly agree with said something, I don't just take that as the unfallible truth. And Republicans, Democrats, I think they both have good and bad things. I really like Republicans focusing on freedom. Religion is a big thing. Being Christian, obviously, I'm Christian. I think those are great things, but sometimes they're a little bit harsh. They're a little bit unkind. And so I think that we have some good, and then we have also some bad, right? And then the Democrats, I feel like good. They love everyone, trying to treat everyone as equals. I think that's awesome. But however, I think sometimes they transgress against God's laws, and they promote that. And so obviously there's good and bad with both parties. And so I think instead of glomming onto a party like a lemming, it's better to go policy by policy and try to make an educated, response to each policy and decide for yourself. And I think that's how you're going to be the most successful in navigating this really contentious political environment we go through. Like, go through each policy. You can find a list or chat GPT it and go through each one and try to decide, like, what do I believe? What's my moral? Don't just listen to one guy, especially not me. And then I also am not a fan of hyper moderatism, where you say, "Oh, I'm just moderate." Like, "Oh, I'm just in the middle." That you got to pick stuff. You got to have something that you stand for. And I'm not saying you have to hyper be Republican or hyper be Democrat. I just want you to be hyper moral, where you have strong values and you stick to them. And it doesn't matter, what other people say. You can't be swayed as often. Obviously, you listen to people, but yeah, just don't be aggressively moderate. Like, pick each principle based on what you really believe. And so, yeah, I was kind of getting into this earlier, and I think a lot of times we use one verse or one person who we really trust, and we use that to shape our whole ideology. I think oftentimes, especially our conservative leaders, they've read like 5 verses of the Bible, and they maybe have them on their wall. The actual Bible is sitting on the shelf, the dustiest Bible you've ever seen. Take it off and give me an allergy attack. But I think be careful of just using a few verses that you remember, maybe from when you were studying the Bible in Sunday school, to shape your whole belief system. Anyway, sorry. I need to maybe talk a little bit slower here. I'm doing my best. I think one other thing I just wanted to mention before I get into our story of the day is obviously I'm not perfect, and sometimes my teachings will be hypocritical or hypocritical, like the Pharisees. And I really want to, when I speak about Christ and I say like a commandment that we're supposed to keep, I hope that as you listen to that, you don't think like, "Oh, Gunner does it." I try my best to keep the commandments, and I'm always repenting or improving or changing to try to be more like Jesus. But I'm so far from perfect. I make so many mistakes. And I hope that I don't want to come from a place of highness, right? I do a lot of stuff wrong, and I know I'm going to present this front of teaching the teachings of Jesus, which are perfection. And I just hope that you know that I am not that as I go throughout this. Anyway, all right, let's get into first story of the day here. The capture of Maduro. So obviously I'm going to read. So for my non-political folks who are watching, I'm just going to give a quick summary of what happened. If you can skip this if you already know what happened, but yeah, I'm just going to go through this super quickly. So I think my favorite article is in the University of Chicago about it. And I'm just going to read it word for word here, just so I don't mince words here. They say on January 3rd, the United States military led a strike on Caracas, capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. My apologies. The operation was the culmination of months of action by the Trump administration, which authorized the bombing of boats allegedly transporting drugs off the coast of Venezuela. Now, in New York City, Maduro and Flores face criminal charges, including drug trafficking, narco-terrorism, which is, terrorism using drugs. And many questions remain about the future of Venezuela's government and economy, especially its oil industry going forward. And so they go on and ask the University of Chicago experts to weigh in. A couple more details I want to add to it. No American lives were lost. It was a quick operation in and out. They captured Maduro. Obviously, they didn't, hurt him or, any serious damage or things like that. I'm sure they weren't super gentle with him, but he's okay. His wife is okay. They're sitting in a cell in New York. And so obviously, that was kind of an aggressive operation. We had to go in and drop some bombs and do a bunch of things like that. And so I want to talk about the good thing about that. So I don't know if many people know about Maduro, but he is the president elected. Most countries don't recognize him as a president because they feel like the election was not fair and free. And so they call him a dictator. And many of his policies, while he has laws that are in action, and if you look at the laws, are like, wow, this is a pretty good, pretty free country. Some of the laws are a little bit big brothery. And also sometimes he goes outside the law. Well, often he goes outside the law. And the people of Venezuela overwhelmingly dislike him. Obviously, he has some loyalists, probably people who he's paying. But overwhelmingly, the people of Venezuela dislike Maduro. And one thing that I wanted to highlight from kind of a religious perspective is I think Christ's his most important thing, the thing he cares about the most, is that people can access him in his gospel, that they have the freedom, the agency to choose him in his gospel. I think he values that more than anything because his goal is for all of us to attain eternal life and live with him because he loves us. He wants to be with us. And he wants to be with us both now in life. I believe in a living Christ who you can communicate with right now. And he wants us to be with him in eternal life and live with him forever in the eternity. So the way to do that is to accept his gospel, accept him, and develop a relationship with him through things that I call covenants, and we won't get into that today. But basically getting close to him so that when you pass away, you'll know him. And Maduro, while not explicitly preventing religion in Venezuela, did many things that were slowing the work of Christ, so to say. Just kind of running through a couple. Obviously, there are lots of religious people in Venezuela. It's a primarily Christian, Catholic, Protestant type country. So, obviously, there is opportunity for religion. However, a lot of religious groups and faith leaders have reported that there's harassment, intimidation, constraints tied to the politics with their religion. Religious leaders are under constant government surveillance. And while it's not typically the duty of religion to critique the leaders of the area, they aren't allowed to. They'll get in big trouble because they're under surveillance. There's a lot of pressure for them to speak positively about the government and, kind of some nudging in that direction. They'll shut down radio stations. They'll block humanitarian aid from the church. They can, just sometimes the security forces of Maduro, the secret military, the secret police, go in, harass, they try to stop services. Anyway, so it's just kind of a whole thing of not necessarily preventing religions from being free, but definitely hindering the work of Christ. And obviously, I can speak for all religions, but from my perspective, the Christian, all the Christian religions of the area were restricted. And so, obviously something needed to change there. And I think that, I don't know, like I said, I don't know everything, but I think Jesus would agree with me that there needed to be a change so that religion could truly be free. And so that's why I think the benefit, obviously there was some violence, and I don't think Jesus would support a violent option. But sometimes you have to, in order to allow religious people to be free, and obviously there were numerous human rights violations that I, could list off that were going on as well. It was a bad situation for the people of Venezuela to both live and be happy and be free, and also to follow Christ. So something needed to change, and I'm glad that something changed. However, I think that everything needs to be done in wisdom and order. Christ tells us things need to be done in wisdom and order. And I don't know if because of how shocked maybe the world was about that operation, that maybe it was done not fully in wisdom and order. And so while I do think it was a great operation, I wonder if obviously, it was tactically executed perfectly, but there's some concerns about it being legal. And I wonder if we should think about, could there have been a more legal or a more humane alternative where Maduro maybe we could have had him resign. Obviously, I don't know everything, so I'm sure people will disagree with me. Maybe this is the best way to do it, but I just think it doesn't hurt to think, could we have done this a little bit more humanely? Maybe not taken so many pictures of him, maybe not bragged about it so much, made him feel bad. Because he's a human, he's equal in the eyes of God. And so I just wonder if that is something we could think about. So obviously, great. Going forward for Venezuela, I'm very interested in what's going to happen. It seems like it's pretty up in the air. I think Trump and his administration were saying they were going to run it, and they were going to, kind of take control of it and use the oil. And I even saw a post on Trump's. He's rage baiting. We're going to talk about this later, but he literally posted a picture of him and like the Wikipedia article of like the president of Venezuela, and it's him. It's like, dude, that's so. Why are you rage baiting people? They already hate you. Anyway, maybe that's just how he does things. But anyway, so I think he kind of did it the wrong way. But going forward, they've kind of walked that back. That they're going to really run things. They're more focused on like the economic side of it. They're going to try to help them, basically become wealthy again through their massive oil reserves. Like basically like, hey, you have this, let's get some money with it. Let's use it to make some money. So I think there's going to be some nudging, maybe some, forceful nudging and using that reserve, in conjunction with oil companies around the world, selling it to different people. And I think maybe that could be done democratically. But I think, helping them economically so they're not starving and, stuff is a good thing overall. I'm not a huge fan of running it. I think it would be very easy to install a government that they want over there. And so I think it's possible to install something over in Venezuela where they elect their own officials. They have a really free and fair election. America, say what you will about America, we have the best elections in the world. Really the best elections. Everyone gets to participate. They make it easy for people to vote. There's some both sides are like, you stole it, whatever. It's pretty free and fair. And we could easily, install that in Venezuela. The cartel could be a problem. We might have to use some force to prevent them from rigging it. But I think if Venezuela elected, they've got the resources to be a rich country. If they could really elect a really good president, a good guy who's not a dictator, who's going to follow the laws, maybe make some new ones, make some changes, that could be really good. And that's better than America running it, because we don't want to take over the world, right? Let's focus on our people. We don't need to expand. Let's just focus on what we've got going here. It's the principle of stewardship that Christ talks about often is, lift yourself and then lift your brother. And I think that in America, there's a lot of work to be done before we start invading and trying to fix everybody. I think we should help them fix themselves is the best way. Teach them the right principles, help them, elect a fair person, and then go forward that way. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. This is just my 2 cents. I think that's speculatively. I think that's what Jesus would want, to try to help them do that. Obviously, someone who's in favor of freedom of religion. And that's not just for my Christian friends, for everyone to choose which religion they want to be. I would, encourage them to accept Christ, but whatever they want to do is their prerogative. And anyway, so I think that would be what Christ would try to do. Obviously, if he actually came down in the second coming, no one would be able to stop him from doing that, and everyone would every knee would bow, every tongue would confess that he's the Lord. But obviously, we're thinking more of if Jesus was on earth as a man again, what would be his view, or what is his view right now as a living Christ in heaven? And I think, and kind of separating from this Maduro Venezuela thing, I think I've kind of beat that dead horse with a stick here. I feel like a big thing in politics today is, and I know this is very Gen Z of me, is rage baiting. They just purposely are making you mad, and you're just falling for it Everyone's falling for it. Like it's just so crazy to me that in our age of like really an ability to check facts. I mean, you have access to more information than anyone. I mean, back when the early Christian churches were starting, they just told you it was in the Bible. You couldn't even read. And so they could tell you whatever they wanted. You had to listen to them. Now you can all read. You all can figure stuff out for yourself. Look at multiple sources, and you're just letting them rage bait you. I mean, Trump posts a video of him pooping on Democrat protesters, and they get so angry about it. It's like, dude, he's literally messing with you. It's like a bully in high school. Like, you just like let them mess with you? Like, just ignore it. It's okay. He's not actually going to drive a fighter jet above you and poop on you. I promise. He's not going to do it. That would be crazy. And the other side too, like they like the Democrats will like have a protest. They can protest. Don't let it make you mad. Just let them do it. Obviously, we don't want them interfering with the regular things that are happening on Earth. Like, just it's okay. Don't get so mad. Just let them do their thing. You do your thing. As long as they're not hurting anybody. Let's just kind of do our thing here. Christ wants us to have agency. It's it's really the only thing that he gave us that's ours, right? Our body and our agency. And so we got to make choices, and we shouldn't be restricting that ability unless it's going to hurt somebody. And so I think, just it's okay. Let Trump post his little things. Let the Democrats, protest. It's just like we can ascend out of this. We can increase our maturity and just like move on. And I condemn the immaturity of both sides. I think frankly it's annoying. It's harmful that we're wasting time and energy that could be helping the country, helping Americans, helping people to have better lives. We have people literally starving, and it's just like, anyway. So I don't want to get too cynical about it, but can we just like, first of all, stop rage baiting? Second of all, stop being rage baited. Stop getting so angry. Just like, make changes, do your thing, and don't let them get to you. Don't be a lemming. Don't let them have you. Don't follow them off the cliff. And that's going to get into our next thing. I'll talk about both sides, leaders of both sides from time to time. I made a joke about Ted Cruz and Donald Trump's Bibles being the dustiest Bibles of all time. But I did want to get into Donald Trump a little bit. I think that's fitting for our first episode because he is just such a polarizing figure. And I have my own opinions about him, but I kind of want to dive into who he is as a person and especially his motivations, because he is rich. He has more money than he could ever spend. Like, a lot of people think that he's doing this whole presidency thing for like money. I just think that's so baloney that he'd do it for money. He likes Diet Coke and McDonald's, guys. He's not eating Wagyu ribeyes at, Ruth's Chris every single night. I don't know exactly, but I mean, I've heard that all he drinks is Diet Coke and he just eats Big Macs. And he's a billionaire. So let's try to steer away from the money part of it. Now, I would not say his intentions are good. So I'm going to get into that here in a second. I wanted to read this tweet, and this is a tweet from him that is in response to the Senate passing the Epstein bill, which he was for, then against, then for again. I didn't get into that. Obviously, it's a little slimy for sure. But this is a tweet, and what I find in this tweet is that he is just kind of listing all his accomplishments, and it's almost like he's trying to like his things are crumbling for him, and he's trying to like grab onto everything that he's done. And so I'm gonna read this, and I want, and I'll talk about these things, but let's read this from Donald Trump. This is from his Truth Social, not Twitter, whatever. Same thing, whatever. I don't really. He says, "I don't care when the Senate passes the House bill." I should do it in his voice. I don't care when the Senate passes that. Anyway, whether tonight or at some other time in the near future, I just don't want Republicans to take their eyes off the victories that we've had. Okay, this is where he starts listing. The great big beautiful bill, closed borders, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone. Okay, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest tax and regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars. We're going to get into that. Rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, having trillions of dollars invested into the USA. A lot of that's from Saudi Arabia, things like that, different companies. Having created the hottest country anywhere in the world, and even delivering a huge defeat to the Democrats on the government shutdown. Make America great again. So, I mean, obviously, say what you will, some of those things are good things that he did, and they're beneficial to America, and they're beneficial to Christians and people who want freedom of religion, and who want people to keep God's commandments and listen to Him. And so there's good things that come out of it, and we can debate on exactly, is there more good, more bad, whatever. There's good things that come out of it. So that is kind of just the objective truth of the matter. But I want to get into why. Why is he doing this? I don't view Donald Trump as a good person. I don't view him really as a Christian. He doesn't really mention Jesus ever. He's spoken a little bit about the Catholic Church. He doesn't talk about Jesus. And I get that he's trying to separate maybe church and state, but if you really care about him, you're going to bring him up. That's just how it goes. I know this. I care so much about Jesus, and even when I'm trying not to bring him up, sometimes he gets brought up. I'm sorry. Just how it goes for me. And so I think that the evidence that he is not bringing him up ever. If people want to send me clips of times, I just have not seen it. And I try not to get too into it, but I just haven't seen it. And that's a little concerning for me as a leader who claims to be Christian, who it seems doesn't know anything about Jesus. And I wouldn't say he's a great guy just by his fruits, what he's done. And I know there's going to be people who are clutching their pearls. If anyone ever watches this, I know there's going to be people clutching their pearls about, this notion that he's not a good guy or a good Christian. But whether or not he's done good things or he's a good leader, he's slimy with women. I'm going to be honest. And obviously, we can all make mistakes, but it's like a history, dating back his whole life of being kind of slimy and power hungry in regard to women. People will say that some of the allegations against him are false, but there's so many, 20 different women have made out. Say what you will, he hasn't been officially convicted. He had to pay out a settlement to one woman. It's just slimy. And the Epstein thing is just slimy. I'll be honest. I like some of the stuff, but I just, as a person, it's just. Now, I will say, and I think this is a good thing for many Christians. If any of my Christian friends are watching this, if you're a Christian and you're drinking alcohol and smoking, weed for non-medicinal purposes, or doing hard drugs, I think that's bad, right? I think being drunken is a bad thing. Christ wants us to be able to help other people at all times and be thinking of Him. And when we're drunk, it's just not happening. And so I would encourage all my fellow Christians, people watching, don't drink. And that's one thing I like about Donald Trump. He doesn't drink. To my knowledge, he's never consumed alcohol, even coffee. He has very few vices. Diet soda. But if diet soda is a crime, then take me away in handcuffs, because I love me a Diet Dr. Pepper. So I admire that. That's a good thing. I think that's really hard, especially for such a powerful person to not do the alcohol thing. I think that's impressive to me. But I think the adultery is way worse. That many wives, there's definitely been some cheating, which is really bad. If he's a Christian, that's really bad. It's one of the worst things you can do. I think there's been some philandering, maybe some fraud, some tax evasion. And so it's just a little slimy, the whole thing. And what's frustrating to me is how much privilege he has. Unlimited money from an early age. And I get he does the whole thing, $600 billion in debt. No, dude, you were always very, very wealthy. And so there's so much good he could have done. And he's done some good stuff, and, both sides will say he's done more good or more bad, whatever. He's done some good stuff overall. And so people will list his accomplishments like this and say, well, look at all this good. He ended 8 wars. I didn't even know there were 8 wars. Maybe there are little conflicts. There's 2 big wars that he has not ended that need some work. So let's get going on that, Mr. Trump. But anyway, so I don't want to get too political, but I just think from a religious perspective, religious standpoint, he does not have, and I don't want to judge, but from my view, his relationship with Christ is lacking. And I think when people don't have that relationship with a higher power, they try to search for something on earth to replace that, to fill that hole. And he can't really go after money anymore. A lot of times people will use getting money or hedonism, going after women, or being a glutton, getting really, really overweight. People try to fill that hole, that void of Christ And not to say that Christians can't be overweight or, obviously, a few bad things with women. But I think how he's feeling it is he really cares about his legacy. He wants to be like the most remembered man on earth. And I think that's why he keeps like telling us the accomplishments and also like, posting things that he thinks are funny or will be remembered. I said the fighter jet poop thing. I just thought that was so crazy. It's just like he really is scared of being forgotten. And I think that is the biggest thing. And I think that if you really know Jesus and have a relationship with him, you won't have that fear of being forgotten because you don't care. Who cares on earth? I mean, forgotten. I mean, your family will remember you and Jesus will always remember you. He knows you personally. He knows you individually. He knows everything about you. And if you know that and you believe that, you're not going to be so worried about being forgotten. And I think that's his thing. Power, legacy are kind of his big things. It almost seems like he's like, he sometimes he'll post like things about his kids, which is great, but like he'll promote their stuff. And it seems like he's being a good dad, first of all, but also cheating on their mom is being a good dad his number one priority. It seems like he's trying to create that legacy, the Trump name, and that's a cool last name. He's trying to create that where he's just not forgotten. And so I think that kind of goes into that whole who he is, what he's trying to accomplish. And while there's good things that come out of it, I think his motivations are bad. They're worldly. I don't think he's always just trying to do what's best for everyone. I don't think he always has the working person in mind. Some of his policies are great, but overall, I think we need to really evaluate as Christians, as direct followers of Christ, is this the best? And one other thing, I'm going to go off on a few tangents just periodically. I hate this notion like we're going to do the best of two evils, the shiniest of two turds, they say. Like Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, like I didn't love either of them. And we did. And this is a year ago. I kind of was in that shiniest of two turds mentality. I don't think Christ would like be okay with that. I think he would want us to fight for the best thing. And obviously the best government would be a theocratic dictatorship with Christ at the helm, his renewed body. I believe he will come again, renew the earth, receive his paradisiacal glory. And he will reign on the earth and help us all to be better. And it might be kind of a rocky start to his reign. I don't want to get too much into that. Maybe some fire, some brimstone. But overall, it's going to be better for everyone. And that would be the ideal. Separating church and state can get thrown in the trash. When Jesus comes again, it's going to be a theocratical dictatorship. And you'll want it. When people meet Jesus, they will not think that they will want to follow him. I promise. You'll want to follow him. You won't have any concerns about just following everything that he says because he's the perfect leader. He's God. And you'll just want to listen to what he has to say. I promise. And you can start now, but eventually when he comes, you'll definitely want to. And so, that's kind of a thing of let's stop doing that. Let's stop doing the shiniest of two turds debate. Like, let's fight. Let's fight a little harder. We got 3 years of, this presidency. It's locked in. And obviously we got, 1.5 years of 2020. Wait. Oh, shoot. The midterm elections are like really soon. Okay. We got not that much time for the midterms, but we have two. Oh, it's the end of 2028. Okay. We've got like 3 years until, the presidency. We got about a year till midterms. Let's start to fight for a leader who we think is going to follow the teachings of Christ. And, I'm not saying that the leader of a church, the Pope or the prophet or whatever should lead America. I don't think that's a good use of their time or resources. But let's try to find a leader who we as Christians will agree with their policies. And let's unite. We're still the dominant religion in America and in the world. We have the most followers. Shrinking. Muslim and non-religious is catching up, just by statistics. Let's have more kids, guys. No, I'm just kidding. So they're catching up. But let's try to find the person that way. And if it's a third party candidate and they get blown out and they get 3% of the vote, at least like we fought for something. And if enough, sorry, my hair. If enough Christians fight for a candidate who they can align with, who they can fully get behind and support on almost every policy, based on the policies, like I said earlier, that coincide with your morals. You have to develop these morals. You got to do this now. If nothing else you take away from this, if you're early on in your faith and in your political prowess, I want you to go through everything. I want you to study. I want you to create a moral compass. For me, Jesus is everything. That is who I follow. I study him all the time. I listen to him and I try to do what he would do. And I haven't done that my whole life. Okay? I haven't done that my whole life. Now I'm doing that. I've repented. I'm improving. And then next thing is my family. My wife is so important to me. My biological family, my extended family. And that's really it. That's like the only two things I care about. I'm going to be honest. I live in America. I fight for America. I discuss American politics. Those are the only two things I really care about. I used to care about money more, but it doesn't, I don't know. I've had more money. I've had less money. It's just not as much of a happiness inducer as you think. I mean, it's better than being broke, but those are just the important things, and build those morals. Like what's important to you. Another one is I like to be hyper accountable for things. And that's going to be a kind of a recurring theme. Be accountable for everything. Even if it wasn't your fault, I don't care. Just be accountable. When you say something, do it, right? Your word should be your bond. They always say your word should be your bond. Your word should be your bond. You're some old grandpa thing. Your word is your bond. Well, you cheated on your wife. So was your word your bond? Anyway, sorry, that was a little too far. I apologize for that. But yeah, have your word be your bond, and these are just some of my morals. Obviously, take whatever you want for yours, but develop some things that you follow, that you believe in. Go policy by policy and decide what you want. And then when elections come around and you get the big booklet with all the people and their little blurb, you read through all the blurbs and you say, okay, this policy is the most important to me. Freedom of religion. Let's say that's the most important policy for me. Who is going to not suppress my religion? So you go through that, you do that whole thing, you go through that policy, and you find your next thing. Okay, and then you read through all these blurbs. You maybe do some supplemental research. You can use ChatGPT. I'm a big fan of AI. Use that to talk about these people, go through their policies, go through their Twitter posts, what they believe in, go through their history, and really make a good selection. And I have 0 to 1 viewers, but if everyone just did that, we would pick the best candidate who represents America the best, and we wouldn't let who has the most money or who does the most advertising fund our elections. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but there's powerful people. I would call them, Jesus talks about secret combinations. Those are powerful people working in secret to kind of control. Obviously there's people who are controlling things. And I think as good stewards and good Christians and good Americans, it's our duty to not let that influence us so much, to really pick the candidate who we agree with on a personal level the most. Not someone who we're like, okay, fine, I guess it's okay. There's lots of candidates. Let's pick the right one, okay? And I'm going to do better at that. This is hypocritical of me. I've been a lemming before. I've just followed who I thought. And I'm not going to discuss who I voted for in the past, or we're like, well, maybe you could drag it out of me eventually. But I think that, and this is like a development in the last year for me of, I really want to focus on going by policy based on my morals. And I think that's valuable. That's a valuable principle to adopt. Yeah. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent there. Wait, did I cover everything I wanted to cover? I know I've been a little bit hard on the Republicans and Trump and things like that in this stream here. I'll be equally as hard on the other side. There's a lot of things I disagree with on both sides. And so I'm going to do lots of episodes. Don't just take this as like every time I'm going to be hammering, certain people. I hope, and I've done a bad job at this. I have not talked about Jesus enough, but I hope that what you take away from what I say is that I believe in Jesus. I pray to him. I try to have a relationship. I try to think about him all the time, read his word in the scriptures, listen to his prophets, his apostles. And that's just, and it's brought me so much joy. And it's crazy because I find that people who, the absence of religion and morals, which are all basically predicated on religion, like the golden rule, I think like that. Morals are basically all predicated on religion. The absence of that leads to hedonism. And I think hedonism, the 7 deadly sins they often talk about, is really like the bane of society. They call it mammon, basically the sin of man. That money, power, we could even say legacy. Obviously, you want to leave behind a legacy of like goodness, and people will remember you for that, but not because they'll remember you. So those things: power, money, legacy, food. I have a problem. I love Popeyes. I love McDonald's, man, and I love a Diet Dr. Pepper. So I'm not claiming to be perfect at this, but money, power, food, immorality with sexual things, and I think that too many people are focused on that too much, and that's why everyone's so unhappy, and that's why everyone's taking SSRIs and having to numb the pain with alcohol, and because they're not finding true joy. And I think that the really, I don't want to say the only, well, in my experience, the only way to find true joy is through relationships. First of all, with Christ. Second of all, with a loving spouse who you commit to. There's nothing that makes you happier than that. And third of all, with your family. I think if you can have those connections, and if you don't have a family, make one. Friends. I have some friends who I consider my family, my brothers. And so just like that is the key to happiness. And I'm a 25-year-old man. What the heck do I know? I'm a white privileged 25-year-old. I never struggle for much, they say. But just in my experience of living on this world, they've been a vivid 25 years. A lot of crap has happened. I would just say that is what brings happiness. And so I hope if you take anything away from this, it's that I love Jesus. I love my wife. I love my family. And I have found joy, lasting happiness. I'm really not ever angry. So when people cut me off on the freeway, I mean, I have to suppress myself because let's not judge. Let's not be prideful. Who knows what they're going through. But, other than that, like I just find myself happy all the time. And if you don't find yourself happy often, I think there's some changes that you should be making. And, I'm not going to, try to call you to repentance and say you're a horrible person, but I would look into it. And if you have questions about what those changes look like or things, I would love to talk to you. While no one is watching my stream, no one will watch this video. Maybe they'll go back and watch it later. Maybe my family will. I haven't told them about this yet, so we'll see. But I hope that if you have a question about faith or about Christ or about just being happier, I feel like I am an expert on being a happy person. And I hope that you'll ask. Either you can come to another live stream. I'll be back again on Thursday and ask, or in a comment in the next 3 days on this video, or I'll be posting smaller clips on other platforms. I really want to help anyone I can, as many people as I can, through this effort here, through this little journal, this Modern Family, what Jay from Modern Family, little talk show thing. I hope that I can do that for you. I think that's pretty much all I have for today. Let's see. Any questions in the chat? Let's see. No, I do have one viewer though. Wow. Well, thanks for being here. My one viewer. I appreciate your time. It seemed maybe you joined a little late, but if you want to go back and watch things, feel free to do so. But I think that's going to be all. At the end of every stream, I'm going to bear my testimony. I know Jesus lives. I know he is real. He can have direct impacts on your life. People are so concerned about eternal life. Right now, he can make your life better by having a relationship with him. I promise. And I know that because I've done it. It's an anecdote. It's not theory. I don't live in the world of theory with this. He's really made my life better. And I have such a good life. I'm so blessed. Not to brag. But man, it's just so good for me right now. and I know you can get that too through Christ. So I say that I bear that testimony. I say these words, hopefully accurately representing Christ as a disciple of Him. And I don't know, should I end with amen? Maybe let's just say amen, and we'll call it a day. I'm going to stick around for like 30 more seconds here, just round it to an even number. Maybe I have OCD.